How's it going, everyone? And thanks for joining the Bot Podcast, where we interview movers, shakers, innovators, and talk all things conversational user interfaces. I'm your host, Chad Oda, and today we are very privileged to have Hans van Dam, the Managing Director of Robocopy, all the way here from Amsterdam. Hans originally started off as a copywriter, working for several tech startups in sort of the Amsterdam area. He eventually transitioned to the CX company, which effectively was developing a self-service software for customer support. At that time, Hans began to realize some of the prevailing trends in regards to conversations and chatbots, which sort of got him thinking about conversational development and design from a copywriter's perspective. From there, he was sort of compelled to start his own company, which is called Robocopy, based out of Amsterdam, where they really focus on figuring out how to train sort of the next generation of copywriters in conversation design and development. The company also does consulting work for companies in regards to helping them with their own specific needs and dialogue for their chatbots or voice implementations. Specifically, they're developing sort of a program that has multiple components that are necessary in building very compelling, intuitive, and very accessible experiences. For example, they're focusing on character development, tone and voice. They're focusing on how to build scenarios and much more, which Hans will sort of fill us in on here. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and welcome Hans to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Hi, Chad. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So before we get started, I always like to ask our interviewees sort of a specific, unique question to them. So I was taking a look at your LinkedIn this morning, and I saw sort of in your more formative years, you were actually up here in my neck of the woods in the Pacific Northwest in the United States, in Eugene, Oregon, if I recall.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was there as an exchange student. So when I was 16, I did a high school exchange program. So I did the whole school bus experience, which was quite exciting for me at the time.
So I'm curious, what was like the thing that left like a lasting impact being up here in the Pacific Northwest? You know, if it's not the weather, I understand it's a bit bipolar sometimes, but.
I mean, I'm from the Netherlands, so that's sort of my natural habitat. I'm used to 4 seasons in a day, I guess. But no, I just really enjoyed the laid-back vibe on the West Coast, and particularly also Eugene, Oregon, which traditionally is like a hippie town. So it's just like friendly people and very green, a lot of nature around it. So I'm actually looking forward to going back this summer and just meet up with old friends and seeing everyone. And so I was 16 to 17, and then I went back to Amsterdam.
Absolutely. Well, you'll have to, if you get the chance, jet up here to Seattle, and we'll have to grab coffee or something.
We'll do that. Looking forward to it.
Cool. Well, hey, sort of jumping into some of your background a little bit more. What was that sort of initial spark for you that got you interested or sort of involved in chatbots and conversational user experiences?
Well, you sort of mentioned it in the intro because I was working in self-service and customer service really, and with the virtual assistants that you used to have, where it's just ask Mary your question and she either does or doesn't know. And it was really actually a very simple Q&A format, and I saw the market move towards chatbots and conversational interfaces. And I really saw the clients that we were serving struggle with it. And for me, having worked with tech companies, sort of being involved with AI and as a copywriter, now also understanding customer service from the experience at CX company, I sort of, everything came together for me there. And I got really excited about it. And like the first results that we got were really good. So I actually just started a business by raising my hand and jumping at the opportunity and just saying, I'm dedicated to this specific problem. Let's go.
Absolutely.
And kind of took it from there.
So talk to me a little bit about, your background being a copywriter. I think it's something that's continuing to emerge as sort of a title or a position that we're seeing a lot more of in voice and chatbots. So how does that sort of play into how you sort of got into this space? Because I hear you talk about character development and tone and voice, and I think that's sort of this natural segue into chatbots. So how did that sort of affect how you got into the space?
I mean, in a way, like if you look at the whole space, everyone's focused on technology and natural language
Right.
understanding. And if we really want bots to play like a valuable role in our lives, and if we want to have conversations with them, then half the battle is actually creating natural language, and that has to be equally important. So for me, that was very clear that that was going to be an important role there, and just writing elegant conversations isn't going to work because you have to understand how AI
Right.
works and how the machine works. So we figured, there's like two types of brains that we got really excited about, where you have the artificial brain that has to communicate with with the human brain, and just combining principles from psychology, really understanding the capabilities and limitations of the human mind, and also with AI, understanding the capabilities and the limitations, and sort of using conversational copy to sort of navigate that field. That was really exciting for us. And so it all seemed to make sense at one point. So how are we gonna, write conversations that not only sort of help the customer get jobs done, but also really understand how the customer feels
Right.
when he wants to get that done. So if someone's really, angry, how do we put empathy into that conversation? And it's all like new territory that nobody had explored. So
Right.
it's just
Right.
really exciting to get going there, and it seemed to work out. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. What year was that where you sort of started to make that transition or started to realize that sort of turning point?
For me, it was like 2 years ago, I think.
Okay, so that was
Uh, yeah, so it was like when messenger bots started coming out, which we're all pretty bad at. Or most
yeah,
of them still are, I guess.
right, right, right.
So that's what I started, and then I ran into a company called Buyer Minds, and their
Mhm.
behavior design agency. So they're really focused on persuasion and psychology, and they'd actually been doing it for almost 4 years, and
Wow.
not really from a chatbot standpoint, but they
Yeah,
were just looking at how can we make forms more, increase the conversion rate of a
yeah, yeah,
form, and maybe we can use dialogue. So they were doing that for a while, and having a lot of clients there. And then, when chatbots sort of entered the scene, they were like, oh, we've been doing this for a while, actually. So we teamed up, and that
yeah.
became Robocopy. So
No,
I have
that's
the background in service, and they have the background in psychology, and that's the core of what we do.
yeah, that's really cool because 2 years ago was 2016, and I think that was to your point of when chatbots were sort of making some noise. 2017 was the hype cycle. We're hitting the peak where everyone's
Yeah,
this is the year of chatbots. And I think it's a really pivotal moment because so I was actually at Chatbot Summit this past one at the end of January. And I think even in 2018, right, the main point from the keynote speaker was effectively chatbots are terrible, right? Because
yeah.
in a room of 1,500 people, right, he says raise your hand if you had a great experience with a chatbot. And
Yeah.
we had there was one guy that raised his hand, and the keynote speaker was like, you must be lying, right? So but I think the takeaway from that, from his perspective, and I think a lot of people at the conference, was really focus on user experience, right?
Hmm.
Focus on user experience, focusing on how we make the conversation compelling and the personality. So I think what you guys are solving is very prudent right now, provided all the technology that exists, but the
Hmm.
experience isn't there yet.
Yeah, I mean that's the role that we have. A lot of companies have, you know, brought in technology past 2 years, thinking that they could just plug it in and hit the play button and AI
Yeah,
would solve everything, and that's just not the case. We just try to keep it very small. Just start with like a couple of conversations, and really optimize that, and really understand what's going on. And everyone's selling hammers, and now the market is ready for carpenters, and
yeah,
that's who we train, and that's who we are. And I think most companies are now really understanding that
hmm
AI is still a lot of hard work, and
yeah,
AI computers are just really dumb, and they can be good at like a couple small things, but they just need a lot of help. They can be really good, but they need conversation designers to help them get there. um, and yeah, if you look at the hype cycle, I think we're now sort of in a realistic world where everyone's building teams and really understanding how to, or starting to understand that it's a lot of work, and that you need to actually write these conversations and really go into the data and understand how your users are interacting with it. And yeah, I mean, UX was really bad. And I think, by focusing on UX, we can actually make this a successful industry. Like, everyone's willing to go for conversational, and everybody understands the need for it. And we just now need to be, grow up and really get to work and make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you sort of mentioned something a couple of minutes ago, and I think this is maybe a good segue. You were sort of going into territory that no one had ventured into before. No one really was thinking about, how do we sort of take psychology and sort of, the elements of copywriting and sort of putting them together in sort of a cohesive format to sort of try and teach people how to make really compelling UX experiences with chatbots. So can you talk maybe about some of the initial, challenges or sort of difficulties that you sort of experienced when you guys sort of initially started? It could be a specific experience, or it could be, just the company itself that you guys were sort of venturing off into the unknown with.
I mean, the really educating the market, I would say, has been one of the greatest challenges at first, and now everybody's already coming to us. But really helping companies understand that it's worth investing into personality. And personality, a lot of people will have like a gimmicky character, and that's just going to be fun and tell jokes and use a lot of emojis and exclamation marks, and they're ready to roll. And but having that good character, sort of convincing companies to invest in that and really do the research for that is so important. And that was really one of the challenges that we had to overcome. That it's not right to just create a compelling character. You need to understand how it relates to your users, and sort of we look at the Rose O'Leary and things like that. Is it sort of equal to you, or is it a servant, or is he sort of above you and as a wise man that wants to inspire you? And with this character, that relationship sort of opens up character traits that you would have to add, and you really need to understand the psychology of that character, and then the stories sort of write themselves in a way. So it's really taking the foot off the gas, and really that first step is sort of do the research and really understand what you're doing, and invest in that before writing 100 dialogues. And that was really, getting people to understand that was required, and that's a necessity to even, create an okay chatbot.
Yeah.
But I feel like the market is catching up to that now, and actually, asking us to help out with it. So, but that was really, when we started out, one of the obstacles, I would say.
Yeah. Just to convince people that what you guys were offering was actually really beneficial, and it just don't invest in tech. Also focus on how we actually sort of massage these conversations into something that's intuitive. That's really cool.
But I mean, at the same time, like, what happens, like, if you're going to build a house, you're not going to buy a hammer, you're going to call a carpenter. And so the whole industry is sort of backwards, where everyone's buying fancy hammers and then sort of trying to figure out how to use them. So I guess, that's the broader scope of the obstacle. But we're getting there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think what we're experiencing now is atypical to, any other adoption cycle, right? I think typically it's, there's a lot of really cool technology that looks really like there's a lot of potential there. I remember, at one of the conferences for chatbots I was at, they're saying that right now chatbots are sort of akin to what smartphones were in 2006, right? They're really cool, they're really sexy, there's a lot of potential, but the experience was just terrible, terrible. And it's like, once we begin to focus on making these really intuitive experiences and making them easy to use and user friendly and things people like, then I think we start to see some really interesting successes. So I think that's actually another sort of segue. What for you, when you guys were sort of getting and onboarding your initial clients, what was that sort of initial win or that initial result that you saw from the work that you guys were doing that was like, okay, I really think there's a business here now?
Yeah, we nailed it. I think it's like an insurance company here in the Netherlands where, it was that you could see that everyone, when you build a team right now with chatbots, people, these big companies, they have their UX designers and they have their regular design, the visual designers, and they have their copywriters. And so what they were trying to do was, just really create a flow chart, and then they do all the back end integrations, and then they give the copywriter like a flow chart with lorem ipsum in it, and just, okay, can you add some words to this? Generally how you would make like a flow on a website. That usually doesn't work because you need someone, with a conversational mindset to just help solve issues in the whole customer journey, like from the start. So when we started working with that insurance company and we looked at their dialogue, so they would have like, I think at one point they had 10, I think they had like 10 FAQs, like 10 in one conversation, and the drop off was like 95% at that point. We saw that we blew their mind by just taking out like 7 options and just leaving 2. We increased for like 300%, like in a day. So when we did that, we sort of knew that we had a business there, because that was an important campaign for them, and they were really struggling with it, and they were committed to the technology, and we sort of gave them the magic key to make it valuable. So that's when we realized we had a business, and also with a large e-commerce company here in the Netherlands. They wanted to get product reviews. So after you bought something, they want you to leave a review, and we quadrupled that conversion rate just using a conversational interface. So yeah, then you're onto something, and
yeah.
So that those are the moments that you sort of remember, like looking at the data and sort of giving that phone call, like,
right.
have you seen this data? Yeah,
You're like contacting your teammates, and you're just like, oh man, analytics, crazy.
Yeah, let's buy a Lamborghini.
Eventually,
one step at a time.
Yeah. So, I think you raise a really good point. If you can maybe talk a little bit about specifically, where you see your company sort of fitting into sort of this market need and this market opportunity. I think you sort of alluded to it a little bit in regards to, namely, first of all, the methodology to how we develop these bots. Right now it's very developer heavy with flowcharts they're dictating, and having a copywriter say, hey, sprinkle a couple of your magic words on here, and, I think the second thing in addition to that is also, what does the team composition of, a effective team look like, in regards to how you guys are trying to address this specific market need?
Yeah, I mean, I think like a chatbot team with these larger companies where it's really customer service focused, you're going to have guys that all they do is look at the data, and all they do is optimize and design A/B tests, and just going over decision trees and seeing where the drop-offs are. That's a very important element of your team, that once you're up and running, that's 24/7 job pretty much, if you have the volume, which you need anyway. So you generally just have like if you're a corporate, you would have 2 conversational copywriters that just work together as a team, and they get user stories from the business side, and they prioritize that. And with the product owner, what's really important with these teams is that the copywriters help in prioritizing what needs to get done in a conversational interface. Because traditionally, when you think about, we need to make things personalized, so that requires you to integrate with your Salesforce, CRM, or whatever. You need like 5 integrations, and so that means you're 3 months building, and then all your resources are focused on actually getting the integrations up and running and maintaining it. While a conversational copywriter can actually just create the impression that it's personalized, and save you a ton of money in that team. So with a lot of things, that I would say the most important elements, that you have 2 guys just continuously optimizing the operation, and you have 2 guys sort of helping the product owner figure out what needs to get written and what needs to get done. And then it just helps to have a researcher, someone that's very focused on psychology, to really understand how people feel when when your Wi-Fi is broken. You don't want that cheery bot character, being cool and funky and funny, etc. You just want a guy that really understands that you're upset and that gives you empathy and sort of helps you through the process. If you have 10 questions that you're going to need to ask, which can happen often in customer service, then you just need a lot of techniques to really manage the feelings of your user. So so good chatbot teams, like 5 guys that get supported by the IT department, by legal for certain stories, obviously gets a lot of input from customer service themselves by going through chat logs and phone histories, etc.
Yeah, no, I think that's really great advice, because I think it's, in some of the implementations I've seen for some of these companies, it's just like developers are trying to run this thing here, and then we have the data scientist guy here, and we don't, there's not a lot of consensus around what that methodology looks like for some of these implementations that I've seen out here from people that I've talked to. Can you talk maybe a little bit about what that methodology or process looks like in regards to let's say you have the first meeting with the stakeholders, right? Do you have the copywriters in the room at that point, sort of dictating and driving in conjunction with that business consultant, or?
We generally do bring in guys straight away and just sort of demo. Usually what happens is that they think they're doing a good job, even though they call you in, but they still feel that they're doing an okay job, but they know they can do better. But what we just do, bring in a couple of copywriters and just analyze all the conversations that are taking place, and you can already tell, so we just sort of show the techniques that we use by analyzing their examples, and or we bring in, like, we've developed a bot scorecard that we just use to analyze it. That's usually like your kickoff meeting, where we look at personality, we look at natural language, helpfulness, empathy, and persuasiveness. We just analyze the current operation based on those 5 points and give you a score, and then it becomes very obvious what you need to focus on. So it helps to have the copywriters in the room for that. And then, generally, like right now, the data sources depend per company, but generally there's customer services involved, marketing is involved. Then there's a business owner, he's generally operations. So there's different departments already involved, and we try to get all the information that we can in terms of style guides and tone of voice. Every company has a tone of voice and style guide, but you just need to sort of redesign it for conversational. So that's really just the first step of understanding how this brand should communicate and understanding who the users are, etc. And once you have that, we just look at the history and see what are like the most frequently asked questions in a way, and which are possible to get answered by a conversational interface, by chatbot. So those are the first steps, and as you do that and sort of rewrite that, you figure out who's involved, and sometimes it turns out some companies have, like, everything that you write needs to go through legal. Which can be an obstacle, but doesn't necessarily have to be. But then it's really important to have a way of working that always includes legal and then it always includes someone from customer service, and it always includes someone from marketing before you can even push the conversation live. So it depends on the size of the company, but like you get your input from customer service and marketing for launching customers, and they will have their own people that will have to verify the facts that you're putting in there. And once you sort of have that sorted, then you can get to work. And that starts with them writing the scenarios, and per scenario we sort of write the requirements and the obstacles that you need to overcome, and what the resolution should look like. So you can just focus on a 3-act structure pretty much, from screenwriting or scene writing in novels, where you just have you have the intent, you recognize the problem, then there's certain obstacles that you need to overcome. Some of those obstacles can require a back-end integration, so that's why you bring in the tech guys. And then so once you have that whole structure mapped out, that's when you start writing. So there's a lot of work before you write, and then you have the whole thing go, and then once you push live, you start analyzing and designing A/B tests, etc. to make it better. But so that's generally how these projects work, but it really depends per company and how many stakeholders are involved.
Absolutely. Yeah. So from what I understand, it's sort of like, identify what are the business outcomes, right? Understand the brand personality, brand guidelines, what that sort of compelling brand is supposed to be. And once you sort of have those things mapped out, right, it's almost like, okay, now let's sort of make sure the copywriters have some visibility into what the business outcomes are, and then to sort of take, notes from, copywriting and script writing and psychology and maybe a little marketing to then figure out, how do we craft something that's compelling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying, here's all the business logic, go look this over, read it through and make some edits, right? And then we're going to push this, right? I think that makes a ton of sense. I think that does.
Yeah, I mean, most bots are very either robotic and transactional right now, and that's because the writers just weren't involved early in the process.
Right.
So that's why you need to get them in the room ASAP.
Right, absolutely.
So, yeah, I think you summarized it quite well.
Cool.
You did a better job than I did.
Cool. I'm glad I'm on the same page. So we sort of understand that market void right now that you guys are sort of stepping up to the plate and really addressing in a meaningful way that, quite frankly, I have not seen really anyone in the industry doing right now. They may be doing it sort of in these compartmentalized, siloed pockets internally in their own companies, but, someone raising visibility on this topic, I have not seen that. So it's great that you guys are doing this. So what do you sort of see is the sort of end goal of Robocopy, or the vision that you guys are trying to sort of get to? I know you guys are just starting, but I'm sure you've given this, quite a lot of thought.
Yeah, I mean, for us, what we want to be is sort of, I always call ourselves, we want to be the Scrum of conversation design.
Right.
What I mean by that is that anyone that's even getting near a chatbot or voice assistant or anything automated communication needs to get this training and sort of get certified and really understand what you're doing. Because otherwise you're just creating bad experiences and you're hurting the whole industry. So for us, we just want to be that. Right now, we train people at our own office, but we're going to move to webinars and really become like the online academy for it. And our goal is to just train everyone that gets near a chatbot. And there's going to be a lot of work for that in the next few years. Because right now, I mean, robots going to be everywhere. And right now we're talking chatbots and voice assistants, but Boston Dynamics released a new video today. If you have those guys jumping down the street, those robots, you want to be able to communicate with them. So it's not just customer service or sales, but it's fundamentally going to change how humans interact with technology and how it will change their lives. So getting good conversations and being able to communicate with bots is crucial. So we just want to make sure that everyone that is going to design conversations is going to sort of understand the UX of it and really create a better experience. So really focused on becoming that number one institute in the world that everybody just knows and goes to get trained.
Right. I like what you said there, because I think a couple minutes ago you actually mentioned user stories, right? So I immediately am thinking about design thinking or lean startup methodology. And I sort of see you guys are trying to accomplish maybe taking some of those inspirations and sort of building your own sort of framework that's specific to chatbots or voice. Is that sort of, what you're trying to get to eventually?
I mean, right. Yeah, we are, everything like from day one we're creating a method for how we design conversations. So we're really building a framework at, is this user story? Is it service? Is it sales? Is it marketing? And putting it in a certain square on your diagram is going to help you figure out which techniques to use to make it successful. One of the things that you look at is sort of when it's a sales conversation, the motivation of the user is going to be very low, so you're going to need more persuasive elements. If someone has an issue with customer service because something broke in his apartment, he's actually going to be very motivated to solve that problem. So that requires a different skill set and a different writing technique. So everything that we do is really creating a method for structuring these conversations based on what the user wants to achieve and how he feels. So we're not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but we're using stuff from Lean Startup, and we're using stuff from psychology frameworks and from customer service, and we're just picking ingredients and putting it together and creating our own method on top of that.
Absolutely. No, I think that makes a whole lot of sense. I think it's good not to reinvent the wheel. And, I already see sort of some of the components you guys are rolling with. And, I'm obviously really excited to check out, because I know you guys have some more announcements and releases in the weeks and months to come here. But going back
there's a lot coming.
Yeah, no, I know we've had conversation, and it sounds like there's this like mountain of stuff that you guys are just waiting to get out in the way of content, conferences, programs, and just expanding worldwide. So that's really cool. I think you touched on a couple of things in regards to, there's sort of a situational aspect provided the use case, right? And you were sort of saying, in a sales use case, we need to make sure it's more engaging and sort of persuasive to sort of get them to want to use it. So I'll sort of pivot from that and ask you a question. Have you used a chatbot that you found really compelling, that you thought was a really great experience, provided all the knowledge and stuff that you guys are sort of building on your end in regards to UX?
I mean, it's a good question, and it's a necessary question, and the answer is really disappointing, and but I think Google's doing a good job.
You're setting the bar pretty high there for all of us, right?
Yeah. I mean, those guys will get there. But yeah, Google. No, I mean, there's not many great experiences, but I mean, at the same time, I've used customer service bots that just helped me get the job done, and that was good. So I mean, that's actually a very good bot. I mean, the best technology sort of ceases to exist once you start using it, and it sort of becomes natural extension of your experience. So yeah, there's been some good service bots, but overall, I mean, they were very focused on one task, and they did that without any engagement or whatsoever, and that's fine for their use cases. So the boring ones are actually the good ones. Obviously, like, I enjoy Poncho. Not sure yet how it's going to sort of change my life, but I mean, it's a good experience. But I think everyone's still sort of trying to figure it out. What Google's doing and sort of down integrating that in Android Auto is it called? I think that's where the interesting use cases are going to be, and how companies are going to create their own conversations for the Google Assistant and Google Home. I think there's going to be like Philips Hue, where you just, a bot helps you out, turn your lights on and off. It's not that compelling, but it works and it gets the job done. So those are the best experiences right now. And I think it's really important to just not get fancy.
Right. I like your example of Poncho, right? I think they do a really good job with the personality and having consistency, and it's a very fluid sort of experience. You know what you're going to get, but also I think they're experimenting with sort of, I guess, more emerging ideas when it comes to chatbots, because I think they have this component where if you ask a question not about the weather, but you ask about a specific locations or something, it'll actually send you to another bot. Which I think is something that we don't quite see a lot yet. And I think that, I guess, multimodal or, multi-chatbot experiences, I think something that's going to be really compelling in the years to come here.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the big boom is going to be, and sort of making sure that the experience stays consistent and of high quality through the whole experience, and after there's a cleaner. I guess this is the part you're going to cut out.
You can ask them about what they think about chatbots too, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
No worries. I mean, like, just being in the chatbot space, I think we're sort of used to unexpected things occurring, right?
Okay.
Got the user. I was talking to someone out of Japan. They run a company called Bebot AI, and they do all the customer service for a lot of train stations and airports and hospitality, hotels out there. And she was telling me that, there's a lot of people that actually type to the chatbot, where can I meet girls? Right. Yeah. So it's, you never know what to expect, with some of these use cases.
We have stories of that in customer service where you see at like 3 a.m. and people just share their whole life story.
Oh, man, yeah.
They're just happy that someone's sort of listening and just responding to it. So you hear the weirdest things about divorces and it's weird. We've seen histories of people talking to a bot for 30 minutes talking about everything that's going on in their life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think when it comes to chatbots or voice even, or just conversational user experiences, right? I think you point out something that I don't think a lot of people realize, right? I think, when we think about what is conversational first, what is a conversational first experience? I've been thinking about this a lot. I think there are specific use cases. And I think one, to your point, is like this social use case with chatbots, in the way of, we look at an example like Xiaoice that Microsoft put out in China, where you have these people treating it like it's their friend, so I think that's a really great use case that is conversational first, right? It's like, you're not going to get that one-on-one, interaction with any other medium right now.
No, there's also a sort of a scary side to that, obviously, but it's a lot like the movie Her, and I think it can actually like comfort people and just keep them engaged, and sort of, sometimes you just want to talk to someone. It's as simple as that, or just have someone that helps you organize your own thoughts. I would say, I don't know if someone's doing that yet, but just, if I'm working on an idea, it would be great to have like a voice assistant that helps me get to my point and helps me create an argument by just asking, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Can you be clear? And can you say it in maybe one sentence and just sort of have that dialogue with me? Those are great use cases. Yeah. At the same time, people can lose themselves in these things, obviously.
Right.
But, there needs to be something built in for that. But I'm sure they'll do that.
Well, you see the ex-VP of growth at Facebook, comes out saying, I don't let my kids use Facebook. I don't use Facebook. So I agree with you. I think there is sort of a happy balance between these things, as we sort of get deeper into untreaded territory, right? Mm-hmm. So I was also, thinking about, what are other experiences that are also conversation first? I think maybe another one, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Another one is, subjects that are sort of taboo, or subjects that are, people are sort of embarrassed to talk about. I think chatbots are a great use case for that. And then another one I was thinking about is, physical impediments, or I'm not able to move in certain directions, right? Like if I'm driving in a car and I want to order groceries, right? It's probably not a good idea to be looking at my phone, trying to type grocery orders in. So
I wouldn't do that.
Right. I think that's, but voice, from that perspective can work really good. Or,
but is it the same as making a phone call hands-free?
True.
There's issues with that as well, right? So,
right. I think, that's a great point, right? Because I think when we think about first, right, whether it's web first or mobile first or conversational first, what we really mean, I think personally, is in orders and degrees of magnitude higher, that is the best alternative, right? All other substitutes are just significantly less, efficient, right?
Yeah.
And, I'm curious to see when we see that use case where the voice and chatbots emerge, where it's just like, this experience is so much more efficient and great than picking up the phone and talking to someone, or, typing an email to someone. I think that's when we get to this place with chatbots that is really interesting.
Yeah, and I think we're really close to it. If you look what's Google and also Alexa are doing now, what they're making possible, what they're creating, there's a lot of use cases already for that. And it can be as simple as, turn on the TV so you don't have to look for the remote.
Right.
It can make your life very easy. Or, when's the train leaving? I'm in a rush already going to work. I need to catch the train. When is it leaving? But they're all very much, just really one simple action, one task. And the longer experiences, that's still tricky, where that's going to be like the first real use case where you're going to really have conversations, because
Right.
they're still, giving a vocal command versus actually having a dialogue with a bot, and sort of having that perfect one. So maybe a therapist, or maybe just a health coach, maybe someone that helps you organize your thoughts. That just before every meeting sort of gives you a pep talk, and make sure you're focused and primed for that experience. I think there's different ways of there's so many use cases out there that are really good to have conversational. Still, do you want to be in a public space and talking to your voice assistant all day?
Right.
I think that's still something that we need to figure out. So maybe we're going to use thoughts quite soon to actually have these conversations. But that will be a couple of years still. But I mean, there's a lot of use cases, and I think every moment where you're sort of either frustrated looking for something, or sort of insecure because you don't have the information that you would need. Maybe that's sort of like the abstract situation here, where, if you're insecure because you don't have certain information, or you don't have the confidence, then having that bot that's not going to judge you, just helps you figure it out, is going to be super helpful.
Absolutely. We are slowly on the pathway to becoming, more augmented cyborgs than we already are, right? Which is sort of crazy when you think about it, right? It's like, you look at all these movies, these sci-fi movies from, our generation when we grew up, and it's just like a lot of these things are coming into fruition. It's like, I remember watching Minority Report, like 12 years ago, right? And we're seeing some of those things begin to surface, right? Or even back to Star Trek, when they're using a multimodal experience where they're talking to this thing, and there's also a screen, and they're interacting with it, and it's quite compelling. It's quite compelling.
I mean, we're close. We're close to sci-fi. We have a couple of very exciting years ahead of us, I guess, because we haven't even talked much about AI this whole conversation. But if that's going to take off and actually become useful, and then we have the augmented devices. I mean, I think Uber launched today news about the flying cars that they're going to have.
Right.
I think Google's working on it. So, I mean, we're going to be the Jetsons real soon.
You're right. It's a brave new world. It is definitely a brave new world. So, speaking about AI, or speaking about some of the other things in the space, like what other obstacles do you currently see right now that, maybe are holding all of this back? Not just conversational development. What else? What other areas do you sort of see right now that need to be solved?
I mean, obviously the UX, not necessarily the AI, but the understanding of AI. Where we sort of need to gradually. Right now, everything, you just write the conversation and you have some AI for natural language understanding. And AI is going to get smarter. That means that the role of the conversation designer is sort of going to change into defining the parameters within which the AI operates. So that's a big one. But even also, like we just mentioned, how are multiple people in a room? Are you going to talk to a bot? How does that work? And the issue now is being solved where multiple people can talk to the Google Home or Alexa, and it understands who's talking. And so, but at the end of the day, that's also UX. So those are UX issues. But I mean, the major adoption is really once people don't realize that they're using it. If you do it well, it's not a sexy product. And I think that's sort of what we just need to work really hard with a lot of people. And start seeing the first results, and really getting our act together. And then once people, I think sort of once people understand, initially here it's a bot that they're talking to, then, they're sort of not that excited about it. But if they had a great conversation, then they learn, oh, it's actually a bot. Oh, really? That was amazing. So I think all is just focused on making sure that the UX makes sense, and that we sort of figure out the easiest use cases. And I mean, Microsoft has sort of figured that out in China right now, where the one-on-one social conversation is very valuable. It was always, it started out in customer service, and that's sort of working now, and that's going to be, more transactional. The biggest obstacle, I don't necessarily see it as an obstacle. I mean, it's just time where, if we get people excited, right now we're being realistic about it. So we're not doing stupid things anymore necessarily. So that is building an industry. Yeah, we try not to. So we're building an industry where people, are going to get excited about it and are going to be interested in it. And I think a lot of people that would, a couple of years ago wanted to be in tech, they would sort of, go on a front end developer's course, and now they may, choose to become conversation designers and sort of trying to, explore those experiences. So we're building an ecosystem, and that ecosystem, if we just focus on that and we put in the hours, both on the technology side and the copywriting side, then we're going to get there, as long as nobody does like crazy things and really just creates a bad experience. So in terms of obstacles, I mean, it's just time and putting, a lot of long hours and hard work, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think from there, we're on sort of the path to actualizing some sort of ubiquitous AI computing intuitive experience, right? It's on the horizon. What's your vision for where all this sort of gets to, right? What's your vision of, chatbots and voice? Like, when you sort of think about it, like, what is that ideal ubiquitous experience that you'd like to have, or you'd like to sort of help create?
I mean, if I get support and help and encouragement every step of my life, and it's sort of it's always there as your best friend that you have in your pocket, and
right,
it can just help me solve every issue so I can actually focus on other stuff. I think that's where the value is, right? Where we don't have to, with automation in general, if it just takes away all the silly jobs and tasks that we have to do. If it gives me the information at the right time when I need it in a pleasant way, then I'm going to be able to just focus on more important things. And so I think ultimately people become more balanced and creative and more caring, and all just because they don't have to deal with a lot of stuff. It's the same principles as basic income. If you don't just give everyone a bit of money, everybody's going to be fine, and they're going to do the stuff they love and explore new talents, and there's going to be more creativity and new ideas and innovation. So if we can just right now, I would say most people in their jobs, like half the time they're sort of wasting on silly stuff that they don't want to do and that they shouldn't have to do. So if we can take all that away, I mean, everyone's going to be happy.
I think so. Yeah, you're right.
Sounds cheesy, but I think people are going to sort of focus more on more important things like creativity and innovation and love and all those.
No, I love that. I love that vision, because it's, you're not even talking about, well, this specific use case is going to be different, or this business is going to change, or, I think you're right. I think there's actually this underlying shift that can occur, with provided sort of this technology that all this is predicated on. I think that could be a really compelling experience where it's almost just like, like future generations just grow up, being able to skip all these successive steps because, things are just easier, right? It's you don't have to,
you never have to write an email again, I guess.
Right. Well, I mean, by the way, I don't know if you've seen some of Google's quick responses for emails now. It's just like, they're looking into my thoughts, which they're effectively doing by scraping all that data for the past like 20 years. So
I mean, everything's sort of going to be like a Hallmark card, it's like, oh yeah, I could have set that.
Yeah, right, because you did, and the computer scraped it, and there's some deep learning, going on. Yeah, no, that I love that. I really love that vision. It's like what on the journey there is it going to take to get there, which we're both working on and in this space. So I think it's really great to, see sort of these incremental steps and wins, right? So, just provided, where we're currently at with chatbots, was there like a fact or insight about chatbots, something you guys learned that was like really, curious to you or something that surprised you?
Not necessarily. Like what comes to mind now is just issues where, discovering, just saying, hey, I'm a bot and I'm really stupid, but I can help you with this.
Yeah.
Is so much more effective than, pretending you're a very good bot.
Right.
You're going to help more people. Like, hey, if you would just have like in bad copy where the bot just says, I'm a bot. And even say I'm not human.
Yeah.
I really don't know anything yet, but I can actually make a reservation.
Right.
All right, cool. And I mean, you're going to give a lot of people value from that because you're framing it in a very clear way and you're managing expectations. And I think that having that key insight, that was like the first moments where you realized, okay, yeah, we have to keep it very small and simple. So understanding that principle, that was a bit of an eye opener where, just frame and be very clear about all the limitations that your bot has, and don't pretend that it's AI, and don't pretend it's super clever, and don't pretend it can do anything. Just be honest and clear and upfront, and your users will appreciate that, because you're setting yourself up for failure, and you're creating expectations that you're not going to live up to. And so that was a bit of an eye opener, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And, I see the same thing a lot with, other people's bot developments and bot developments of our own. It's really, how do we frame the expectations when, I don't know if there's like a realistic balance in expectations right now. It's like either you think it's like Siri or HAL 9000 that can answer everything, or you understand that I can do nothing. But since there's no like real visual cues in most of these, conversations, right? Whereas on a website, I know the menu bar's up here, above the fold with this important content. If I scroll down here, I see that it's telling me to go to the next page. But in chatbots or voice, it's a blank canvas. So I think, that is a great best practice that I think everyone should start doing. So if you're not doing it, you should definitely start that. It's crazy because I was going through like the top 30 bots on Facebook that on Facebook Messenger, the discovery section was showing me. And it's just like, so many of those are still not great experiences.
I mean, it is difficult. And, like you said, there's no navigation. So all you have is words. I mean, it's already difficult to find a good copywriter, let alone, find a good conversational copywriter. I mean, the whole copywriting industry has sort of focused past few years on either search engine optimization or just writing content and blog articles. But there's not that many that has really focused on writing dialogue and really using every word that you have to sort of create an impact and change behavior. And so it's like conversation design is a new job in general, but the people that would be very talented for it have sort of stopped developing those skills and actually explored writing blogs for marketing purposes. So there's a lot of development that we still have to do in that, because there's like words can do so much, and sort of help you navigate and saying, this is how many steps it's going to take, and sort of say, most people only take 2 minutes to complete this form. All right, let's say, and use all those principles where, that can help a user navigate and sort of, walk them through the process and keep them engaged and involved. Because if you're lost in a conversation, it's really difficult to get back in at the right moment, right? So navigation is key in this.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the greatest challenges, maybe. So.
No, you bring up a great point, actually, that, something I wasn't even thinking about. It's like there's this like void in the market, specifically with copywriters, right? It's like they focus so much time on, sharpening their sword with SEO or blog post. And now we have this like very fluid and sort of bi-directional conversation with chatbots and voice that, maybe there's, from what you're saying, there's not a lot of people trained on this way of sort of approaching conversations.
Yeah, I mean, it's really. I mean, your best bet right now
Yeah.
is on screenwriters that know how to structure dialogue and then sort of move a conversation forward, or reveal character, or sort of say something about the environment that they're in. So they know how to create a dialogue that sort of has multiple purposes. One sentence has to mean multiple things,
Right.
and they're trained in that. And if you look at moving a plot forward is not that different from moving a user story forward. So a lot of the techniques that they have can actually be very helpful. Problem with screenwriters is that they're not interested in bots. Some of them are, and they're exploring, but they're artistic and creative. So but we have some screenwriters in our academy right now.
Yeah.
We have some UX designers, and we have some people from customer service. We have people that are just more like copywriters, and everybody's learning from each other and bringing in their own expertise. In general, the question is, are you going to teach a UX designer to write, or are you going to teach a writer how to do UX?
Right.
Turns out that teaching a writer UX design is easier, but I mean, everyone's sort of exploring that and winging it. But I do see like your average copywriter right now is not equipped at all to do these things, and will actually need a lot of training. But right now we're sort of focused on the one role within a team, but in potential, maybe when we're more evolved in a couple of years, you're going to have one guy that's really analytical and really knows how to create that flow chart and really develop that scenario where all the obstacles are in, and how to navigate there. And the other one's more focused on really writing a dialogue. And it's possible that those roles are sort of going to switch up, so the real copywriter doesn't have to really understand everything in detail, right? So
right. Yeah, no, that's a really great point. From just that copywriters don't really exist for this being one thing. And then the second thing is, once we get to this place, provided what you guys are really facilitating and fostering in the market space with teaching these copywriters, once we have this sort of standard, right, then it's almost like we need the platforms to support this emerging workflow that really supports that, to your point, where it's not like this one or two guys that are having to focus on 30 different elements, right? It's now we have some standardized best practice workflow, but now we need sort of the platform at the end of the rainbow to sort of have that sort of segmentation in there. So, it's like the copywriters can work on the CMS portion of the platform, and then we have the data science people with analytics and this component for training. So I think it's this like incremental steps to get there. So that's a really insightful point you're making.
Yeah, and I think technology companies are actually picking up on this. So we are sort of advising some companies on how to get that workflow in there, and sort of. But like we said earlier, it sort of still depends on how your team is constructed and how many quality checks there are and by who. But I mean, ultimately, we want a platform where we say, we're dealing with a customer service scenario, and there is a lot of questions that we need to ask, and so we know he's going to get frustrated, and then it's just going to list the techniques that we need to use. So if there's 5 questions, halfway, the interface should just give a suggestion. You're probably going to lose this user after this question, so you want to make sure to keep them involved and sort of give them a heads up. Oh, it's only 2 more questions. So we want an interface that's actually conversational in itself, where it gives feedback and suggestions to the conversation designer.
Yeah, it's almost like there's 2 chatbots, right? One on the front end, and then one on the back end consulting the person working on it. That's
exactly that's ultimately what we would want.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. Have you seen any platforms out there that you specifically like a lot? Not to put you on spot if you're working with a lot of different vendors, but maybe.
Right now we work with a lot of different vendors, and a lot of them are sort of doing this. You have frameworks like Dialogflow and Microsoft and IBM Watson that are all sort of similar. maybe for one company, one is better than the other. But I mean, nobody ever got fired for choosing IBM, and I think you're going to be safe with all of them, right?
Right.
So there's that category, and then there's more like the customer service, like the total solution platforms that will have more of these workflows built into it. CX company is one, but Nuance and LifePerson and those type of companies, they're more tailored to this, and I think each company sort of plays a role in the market, and I don't think it's like a one winner take all situation, and I think it's just you have to be really careful as a company as how you are structured, what type of departments you have, and how your users will interact with it, and then make a decision on which platform makes sense. And that goes back to a previous point where I would bring a conversation designer. And bring a Robocopy and help me figure that out. Because right now, I mean, most companies that we deal with, they have like 10 platforms going on within different labels, and they're trying everything out, and they're not really sure what they're looking for. I mean, nobody has the interface that we would want, but there's a couple of good interfaces. And everyone's, trying to figure out. I think there's some companies that do a better job at sort of consulting us and others on how we use it. Some, sort of have their own vision on it, which might not always be the best, but I mean, time will tell, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I guess speaking of sort of consulting on, what sort of is the best thing for the specific scenario, do you have any, I guess best practices for our audience today in regards to UX, just maybe a couple of points that you find really valuable that maybe are things that are working very well for what you guys are working on, that you can share with our audience today?
I mean, with everything you do, just build empathy into it. And empathy is sort of like a simple word where we say, but really true empathy. Like sometimes we make a conversation longer just to build in like one extra step of, have a seat, tell me what happened, why are you angry, and just making that the core and the focus point of every conversation. And empathy can also be positive, obviously, and sort of addressing that. But users want to feel heard and understood. And a lot of bots are really pushing, to resolution too soon. And and even though, the larger the problem, the sooner they want to fix it. But if you have a large issue or a complicated situation, you just want to feel heard and understood. So really focus on empathy with every scenario. It's better to have like more in it than too little. So one piece of advice: just really figure out who your user is and how he feels, and really understand that, and make that like the core principle within that conversation. There's always, like, if you look at character development and in movies and in novels, there's always the external journey and there's the internal journey. And the external journey is really what happens and what goes on. So someone goes on an adventure, and these are the obstacles that he overcomes. So someone has a customer service issue and he needs to overcome these obstacles, and that's his resolution, and then everyone's happy at the end. But every good story also has an internal journey where how does the character change within this adventure, and how does that user change and grow as a person within this conversation. So if he comes in very angry, how do we make him satisfied? Very simply put, that's the internal journey. And having that, using empathy to address that, that's what takes your bots from transactional to valuable and engaging. So that, at the end of the day, that's the advice I would say.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm starting to get into some of the script writing material and sort of older sort of methodologies on speech and things like that, as I sort of look into more of this stuff and I research more. So, I think that's great advice in regards to how to sort of frame the conversational development just for the person designing the workflows. I think that's a really good way to sort of structure things, because I think a lot of times it's like we're only thinking about what the end task-driven goal is, and we don't really consider, how is the user sort of thinking about this or evolving, so I think that's really great advice. Speaking of that, do you recommend, what sort of resources do you recommend, maybe for people that are just starting bot development? Could be your service, which would be great.
I would definitely all take a course at Robocopy. Now, it's what we discover. There's some people are writing books on this right now, and there's a couple published already, and they're not that great. They're very much, they're still really people with a developer background, and it's still, it's not really addressing the empathy and the feelings of the user enough. So the materials that we use are more from behavior design and Cialdini, and also, who's the author? Thinking Fast and Slow.
Interesting.
So it's more in the psychology space.
Yeah, love it.
And really focus on that and sort of understanding the human brain. Tech is covered. There's millions of people focused on that. So you don't have to understand that. You just need to understand, what is intent and what is context and what are entities. Then it's fine. The crucial element in making bots successful is understanding the human brain. So I would read books on that. So and also Hooked, which is a good book that more explains the BJ Fogg model on motivation and behavior design. So those are good resources that I would focus on. And that's provided you know how to write, right?
Right, exactly, right. That could be an impediment, right? But, hopefully, they can take one of your courses and sort of, instead of having to read 20 books, they can
well, we're actually writing a book right now, putting it all together.
Awesome.
So that should come out next year sometime. But I'll really incorporate and really merging, tech with psychology and how to navigate that using copywriting skills, I guess.
Yeah, no, with that point, I'll sort of give you the floor so you can sort of maybe elaborate a little bit more on what you guys have coming up, what you guys have on the horizon as far as what you're working on and what you expect to release.
Yeah, so one of the big things that's coming out real soon is really moving the course to an online course, where we're just going to make it very easy for people to get training. So there's going to be webinars. So the longer, like the real course is 8 classes that takes you from a character development to scenario writing, conversation design, UX writing, persuasive copywriting. That if you do that, then you can call yourself a conversational copywriter and get certified. So that's an online course that's coming out. We're also doing like 4 workshops, more for corporates, where you just bring in your team and you sort of pick the classes that you want to follow. And we're just going to make that very easy and accessible. So first we're going to do it live via webinars or in your office, and then we're going to record it and sort of polish it up and really make it an online course that you can just follow, from your office or at home or whenever you want, from the comfort of your bed, whatever you want. So we're turning it into an online platform where people can get to training and become conversation designers and conversational copywriters. And together with that, we're announcing soon a couple of partnerships with major interesting tech companies, let's put it that way. That every tech company has the issue where they want to make their technology sticky within their customer base, and by focusing on conversation design, we're helping them do that. So those are let's put it differently. Like the first announcement that we're actually launching is the online video platform, and then we have a couple more things coming up, like the book and a couple of partnerships.
Cool. Any hard release dates, or sort of still in flux a little bit?
No, but we're starting the webinar course at the end of the month. We're announcing the date probably next week, and then people can sign up and start taking that, and then we'll probably start a new batch every week.
Awesome. Well, I'll definitely check that out. So definitely keep me in the loop.
Will do.
Cool. Well, hey, last question before I ever let our guests leave here. I always like to sort of understand, different people's perspectives and where they come from. So what sort of keeps you motivated and inspired to sort of continue on this sort of mission that you guys have sort of set forth?
I mean, it's an interesting question. I think generally what keeps it, I've tried different companies and done a lot of startups, and usually it fails. And this is the first time that someone told me to start this company. So, that keeps you motivated. And, initially I just wrote like a blog post on, we have an academy, we're training our own people. And, I'm getting requests from all over the world. Like, we want to get the training, we want to get the training. So it seems that the path that we're on and everything that we do and release really has an audience that actually finds us, and we're not really doing marketing yet. So that just really keeps you motivated to know that you're on the right track and sort of helping people really solve this problem. So yeah, that keeps us going, and meeting the people that are just as crazy and about this industry like you. That's what's interesting. It's still a small group. Everybody sort of knows each other, and everybody's dealing with the same issues and having the same conversations with all these corporations. So, I mean, we learn from each other, but we also inspire each other, and that's what keeps us going, I would say.
Absolutely. I love it. Well, Hans van Dam, thank you so much for joining us today on the Bot Podcast. It was great to, learn about some of the exciting stuff you guys are working on, some of the stuff that's to come. I'm sure we'll have many more interesting conversations. We'll definitely have you back in the near future. I'm sure you'll have way more insights and crazier things to announce. So definitely looking forward to that. So with that, thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Thanks. Have a good one.
I'm just going to actually stop the
turn that off. Yeah.
recording. Yeah, stop it.